We are live here at, what is this conference?
This is called the Web Summit. It's in Portugal. We're in Lisbon, Portugal.
And look at this, who I have here, a special guest from American television. It is the great Jon Burk of Roker Entertainment. John, great to see you. How you doing?
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on your show today. I didn't even know you were going to be here.
It's amazing. You just never know who you're going to run into here at, what's the event again?
It's called Web Summit. 70,000 people and I run into you.
Yes. I mean, how lucky can a person be?
Right.
So, we've just been to a couple of sessions that focused on branded entertainment. And of course, with Roker Entertainment, branded content is one of your areas that you're very focused on.
Yep.
Talk about some of the trends going on right now with branded entertainment.
So actually, the reason why I came to this conference was because at our company, Roker Entertainment, most people just know Al as being the guy on the Today Show, but we've had a production company for 25 years. In fact, this is our 25th year. I've been with Al now for 8 years. And we do television shows. We're known for doing linear TV shows. But in the past 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer, we've branched more into digital and doing content for social media platforms and things like that. And we work with brands on telling their story. So brands are usually looking to be part of that conversation when it comes to social media. And not just in social media, but also in a linear world as well. A lot of the programming that you see, a lot of it is branded content these days. I just came from a conference or a talk with the head of Giphy, Alex Chung, and we've actually worked with Alex Chung before and Giphy with Al Roker. Al Roker has over 1 billion visits to his Giphy page. And so the one thing Alex was mentioning also was the fact that 95% of GIFs or GIFs, I'm not sure exactly what the jury is on the pronunciation of that word. But
I think it's GIF, but I like to say GIF.
You know, I think it's GIFs, to be honest with you. I think it's because they were saying GIFs on stage. So I'll just go with that.
I would think the head of Giphy probably knows.
Well, he didn't say.
Oh, he didn't say?
He didn't say. No. The other
They like to keep it a mystery.
Right. In fact,
Keeps conversation going.
I got to be honest, his microphone skills weren't the best. Anyway.
Not like the stellar job we're doing here.
The one thing at conferences, you gotta have good microphone skills. Make sure people can hear you. There's tens of thousands of people here, you know, and if you're like back here with the mic, you know, it doesn't work, folks. Anyway, so they were talking about how the fact that 95% of the content on Giphy, 95% of the GIFs that you attach to a posting on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, those are branded.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you talk about branded content, break it down with an easy definition to get started, and then we'll go into a little bit more of the trends that we're seeing.
So branded content is basically the brand pays for everything. The brand wants to be on a platform, the brand wants to be on a TV show, or they want to be represented in some kind of broadcast medium. The brand pays for everything. So it's a combination of them paying for the creation of that content, then doing a buy to place that content, and sometimes they're also involved in the creative. But a lot of times they'll outsource the creative to an ad agency or to a PR firm or a company like ours, which is a production company that's a hybrid, if you will, that will actually work with them to formulate what that content actually is. A lot of times it's because of the fact that if we look at the organic reach of a lot of these platforms, especially when it comes to Facebook, it's less than 2%. And sometimes it's down to almost like below 1, right? So they have to pay to play. But a way to actually make something that's not a commercial to play on social media is to create a narrative. Is to create good storytelling. And a lot of them are doing it now in order to tether a younger audience, millennials and Gen Z, by doing something in the social good space. If they can talk about their foundation they support, if they can talk about the good things that they're doing to give back, then that resonates with followers. It doesn't look like it's a branded piece of content, and it will get shared.
So the goal is to create content that looks like it's native to the platform and gives the viewer some of the similar experiences and emotions that they would expect from content on that platform, but ultimately your brand becomes the one that solves the problem for them or gets worked in some way, whether it's a lower third on the screen, whether it's product placement, in some way your brand becomes part of the story.
Well, really, to me, I've actually speak on branded content when I go out to do public speaking, and I just did a talk at UCLA about branded content to a brand class. And the examples that I bring are usually ones where you don't even see the brand. It's not very overtly placed. Right. Okay. So let's be clear, this isn't product placement. It's not product placement. That's a whole different ballgame, right? That's where companies pay to be basically to have their products integrated into the narrative of a show. And I think where you see a lot of that is with premium cable. So watch anything on HBO, watch anything on Showtime, watch Succession or House of Cards or The Affair on The Affair on Showtime's got a ton of brand integration, and they do a great job. This is more of the brand just wanting to be in a platform and telling a good story. It's really about good storytelling. So a lot of times you won't even see the product that they're talking about. It might be presented by the brand, so they might be at the top of the show, if you will, almost like a title card in a way, presented by Lexus or presented by Toyota or Nike. Or it might be at the end. There might be a logo at the end. There might be the swoosh from Nike at the end. But there's not always a call to action, okay? They just want to be associated a lot of times with doing something good, so creating good content that's going to resonate with an audience that will then engage with that and share it. And by osmosis, I guess if that is the right word to use, the customer's brought into the conversation.
Right. Now we're seeing big brands also taking the content, both taking content creation in-house, but also, even if they're outsourcing the content creation or the production, they are looking to create their own platform, their own app, their own bonus content, their own subscription resource within their own ecosystem rather than putting all their content on social media.
So actually, that's one of the big trends that's happening right now. It's brands are taking back their audiences. So instead of like throwing people over to a Facebook page or throwing them over to an Instagram account or throwing them over to a place that goes off platform, if you will, for lack of a better term, they are creating their own ecosystem where they keep them actually within their universe and they make it social. There's a few examples that are coming out. There's one in beta right now from Netflix called Episodes that is where if you're a big James Bond fan and there's a new James Bond movie coming out and you want to connect with other James Bond fans, instead of going onto Facebook and looking for those groups, you can stay within the ecosystem of Episodes and talk about it with people that are really into James Bond. So we'll start seeing a lot of that where brands just instead of like going outside of their universes, they're bringing people in to their camps where they can serve them content and they can give them stuff as well, whether it's swag or couponing or whatever it is. It's a form of marketing that doesn't feel like marketing. Right. But you're already buying into brands. When you leave your house in the morning, you don't get coffee, you get Starbucks, right? So you're already buying into the brand. So if they were to create that, and actually Starbucks does do that, if you go and use their Wi-Fi, then you're going into the Starbucks world. And it's not a terrible world. There's news there. You can like get caught up for the day, you know?
Yeah, we're talking with Jon Burk from Roker Entertainment, live in Lisbon, Portugal from Web Summit, world's biggest tech conference, over 70,000 people attend it each year here in Portugal. And Jon, talk about what's going on as far as solo creators, YouTubers, live streamers, podcasters. How can they take some of what brands are doing and replicate it if they have an audience already built up?
I literally have no idea.
So you...
right. No, I joke, but it's a tough game out there.
Right.
You really have to establish that brand, and you have to do it organically. You have to build that audience. Nobody's going to talk to you basically unless you have some really good vanity metrics, and that's a shame, really, because there's some really great content out there that's coming out of these people, these creators, and I guess that you're leaning more towards the influencer world, right? And I know with some people that's a dirty word, but this panel that I was at yesterday about Gen Z takes all their cues from influencers. They don't take it from the big stars, okay, like maybe the millennial generation did and maybe Gen X. But Gen Z is all about, they really trust their influencers that they follow. It's people that are just like them that are shopping for brands or like big in fashion, trying on fashion, stuff like that. So I think it really is about, the first thing to do is make sure that there's an audience, okay, that you're building an audience and that you've drilled down into those metrics of that audience. Like you know exactly what the demo is, because that's when brands come knocking, okay, when they know that they need to go and reach that audience. it's all about data now. So the more data you can possibly have, the better it is.
Talking with Jon Burk, Al Roker Entertainment. What is it like working for Al Roker?
So Al's a great guy. I was just in New York a couple of weeks ago. I had to do a couple of shoots with Al. The things that I do with Al are off the Today Show for the most part, although I do a lot of promotion for the things that Al does on the Today Show. We do things where Al is the most inspiring person I've ever worked for, in the sense that he just never stops. He never complains, he never stops, he always works. He has 11 books. He has a 12th one coming out next spring that I'm doing the marketing for. And I've done marketing for his past books as well, too. So there's a lot of video stuff that we do together, a lot of behind-the-scenes things. And then there's also some charity stuff. I mean, Al's always involved with charities as well, too. He is a very warm person and has a big heart. So a lot of charities like to get Al's endorsement, for lack of a better term. It's not really an endorsement. It's just Al does support a lot of things when it comes to like veterans and things like that. So I do a lot of work with him on creating that messaging.
Right. He's been one of the most really universally liked figures in TV news and broadcasting for several decades, 4 or 5 decades. He's really been a fixture. And as things have changed, Al's really been one of the few people in TV that's been always ahead of the curve in understanding technology. He went all in on live streaming for a brief time. Yep. And I know everybody watching this isn't going to love this. I might not love the answer, but you guys aren't that focused on live streaming as the main content at this point.
So to get back to two of the things that you said before we talk about live streaming,
sure,
was Al, last year they did a celebration on the Today Show for Al, 40 years on NBC, giant cake, and the family came out to give it to him on camera, live on the Today Show. So he's been on traditional linear television for 40 years, and by the way, live television. All right, so when we talk about live streaming, that's the original live streaming, if you will. Okay, live television.
40 years at NBC, right?
40 years at NBC.
He was in TV before that.
Yeah, so he was back in Cleveland doing the weather back there, and then he moved over to New York, was live at 5 on the local station. Then he got bumped up to the Today Show, and the rest is history. I kind of like the fact that he's had that staying power, because he brings gravitas to the morning gab fests. If you think of all the people that have come and gone,
right, and
NBC has had plenty. Okay, we won't go into those, but he has that voice of authority, if you will, and that gravitas, and just that bedrock kind of personality that keeps him on the air. It's really good what he does. Okay, so we went all in on live streaming as Roker Media. It was a division of the company back in 2015, 2016. Al came out on stage, South by Southwest, the first person to come out on stage with Meerkat. And he was meerkatting on the stage at South by Southwest. And everybody's like, what's that? What's that? You know, within a year, there was no more Meerkat, you know. I think it became House Party. And then we transitioned over to Periscope, did Periscope for a while, then Facebook Live. We've done programming in Twitch, by the way, too. We love Twitch, right? And then we've seen a lot of these platforms like Busker and all the other ones just come and go. We incubated some talent on YouNow. We love YouNow. We think YouNow's great. But we kind of really tried to work it as a destination where we could monetize the content. Right. So bringing advertisers into the fold. The problem was, and this goes back to the vanity metrics that I mentioned before, they weren't seeing the numbers that they would want to throw a lot of money at. And there's a lot of things involved with that too. You're working with ad agencies and also PR companies where their traditional model is getting paid a retainer on long-term kind of working, delivering audiences, if you will. And at the time, live streaming just wasn't doing it for us. So we didn't abandon it, okay? But it's part of our toolbox now. So when we're offering a content solution to an advertiser that we're working with, it may involve live streaming. Or it may involve like doing things on Instagram stories. We've done programming on Instagram stories with Tastemade, right? We've done different things before with different properties and different advertisers on different platforms. So we haven't abandoned live streaming. We just look for how we can work it into the context of what the advertiser wants.
And where do you see live streaming being most effective for brands and creators?
It really is like an in-the-moment thing. So I think that if a brand is doing a pop-up or like an in-the-moment kind of thing, I think that's where it really has the most effect. If I'm doing a launch of something, right, or an unboxing, right, and living in Los Angeles, I see this all the time down on Melrose and in Beverly Hills and also in Hollywood, where they'll just do a pop-up, and that's when you do your live stream because you really want the audience to come down for that. I think that's really strong for like a brick and mortar retailer to actually do that. We also see, and I worked with Brand Live up in Portland, Oregon on this, but they also do a lot of live streaming internally for companies doing it internally. So for training purposes and things like that. So that's there's a value there.
Yeah. How are you enjoying Portugal?
I love Portugal. This is my second time here. I came last year, but I didn't go to the Web Summit. I kind of stumbled upon it. I stumbled upon Night Summit down on Pink Street, and wow. I'd love to talk about it. But if you ever have a chance to come to Portugal, it's only 5 hours away from I was going to say Los Angeles, from New York City by plane. It's dirt cheap to come on like 2 airlines, TAP Air Portugal, Norwegian Air. They're both great airlines, and they're not expensive. And it's really expensive to be here. First of all, the food is insanely good and fresh, and very cheap. I mean, everything is cheap here. It's made for me, this place.
Having a great time here. Jon Burk, Roker Entertainment, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with us.
And how did I find you here? This is so bizarre.
I don't know. It's the luck of the draw.
70,000 people I run into Ross Brand.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And have a great afternoon. We are live here at Web Summit in Portugal. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.